Gospel of Luke, chapter 19, the first 10 verses. Jesus, Zacchaeus. He entered Jericho and was passing through it. A man was there named Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was rich. He was trying to see who Jesus was, but on account of the crowd, he could not, because he was short in stature. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore tree to see him, because he was going to pass that way. When Jesus came to the place, he looked up and said to him, "Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, for I must stay at your house." So he hurried down and was happy to welcome him. All who saw it began to grumble and said, "He has gone to be the guest of one who is a sinner." Zacchaeus stood there and said to the Lord, "Look, half of my possessions will I give to the poor, and if I have defrauded anyone of anything, I will pay back 4 times as much." Then Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this house, because he too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost." Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, we ask that you would help us to remember that your work in us isn't over when we receive salvation, but rather it has only just begun. Amen. You know, being tall has its advantages. Statistics show that the public tends to elect the taller candidate. And if you can combine being tall with shooting a three-pointer at a high consistency, then you could number yourself with billions of dollars with an NBA contract. Now maybe I'm wrong, but it just seems like from my vantage point that height does translate into success for many people. Of course, there are exceptions to every rule. In our scripture this morning, we read of a man named Zacchaeus who had managed to acquire both wealth and political connections, even though he was, as Luke describes him, short in stature. But even if Zacchaeus had stood head and shoulders above the crowd, that would not have changed the fact that he was looked down upon by his neighbors. It's interesting to note that the name Zacchaeus means pure or innocent. But trust me, Zacchaeus was neither. Zacchaeus was the chief tax collector in the bustling city of Jericho, which made him one of the most despised people in town. But then one day, Jesus showed up in Jericho. And as you can imagine, the crowds lined the streets as Jesus made his way through the city. They were there to catch a glimpse of this prophet, teacher, and miracle worker whose fame was quickly spreading across the land. And Zacchaeus was there too, although we're not told what made him so curious about Jesus. Maybe he had heard that this Jesus befriended sinners and tax collectors. And Lord knows that Zacchaeus could use a friend. But poor Zacchaeus wasn't having much luck seeing Jesus because his view was blocked by the crowd. Now can't you just picture poor Zacchaeus attempting to jump up and down and catch a glimpse of our Lord over the shoulders of the taller people in the crowd? Or trying to squeeze between them to get a clear view? Maybe, if he had been someone else, somebody might have politely stepped away to let him through. But courtesy was a gift that no one wanted to waste on the likes of Zacchaeus. But this little man was determined. He frantically searched for a vantage point from which he would be able to see our Lord. Finally, he found a sycamore tree, and so he ran and climbed up through its branches, finding a perch from which he could at last see Jesus clearly. And in that day and age, it was undignified for a man to run or to climb up in trees. Any man who did either of these things would be considered a laughingstock. So when our Lord paused beneath that sycamore tree and looked up into its branches, the whole crowd followed its gaze. Sarcastic laughter rippled through the crowd at the sight of Zacchaeus' inglorious position. Only our Lord wasn't laughing. Instead, Jesus called him down from his perch, not to belittle him, as the crowd might have hoped. Rather, Jesus invited himself to have dinner with Zacchaeus at the tax collector's home. Everyone in the crowd who saw and heard what was going on couldn't believe it, nor did they think that it was a very good idea. In fact, they openly complained that out of all the people in Jericho who had turned out to welcome Jesus, Jesus chose the most unwelcome among them with whom to share table fellowship. This act by Jesus transformed the once friendly crowd into a mob of suspicious and resentful grumblers. But thankfully, the most important transformation that took place that day was in the character of Zacchaeus. For you see, he climbed down from the sycamore tree and stood before Jesus. Then he looked up at Jesus and pledged to give half of his possessions to the poor. But he didn't stop there. He said, "If I have defrauded anyone of anything, I will pay back 4 times as much." Hearing that, half the people in the crowd turned to their neighbor and sneered. If he has defrauded anyone, there is no if. Well, everyone knew that Zacchaeus had gotten to where he was by defrauding others. If you were a tax collector, that's what you did. Yet when you add up what it would cost him to give half of his possessions to the poor and to pay 4 times the amount he had extorted from others, he had essentially bankrupted himself right there on the spot. What Zacchaeus was offering went above and beyond what the law of Moses required of him. He wasn't reluctantly calculating the minimum restitution that he must give to be absolved of his sins. This man was joyfully and gratefully giving as a response to being found and accepted by our Lord. Now, we don't know what Zacchaeus expected to see when he finally got a clear view of Jesus. I imagine that he was as shocked as anyone else that was there that day at the positive attention that Jesus gave him. And who knows, maybe he had already started feeling the stirrings of guilt that was in his conscience and wondered if Jesus could help him turn it around. He might have even heard about the other tax collectors, prostitutes, and lepers who had found acceptance when Jesus passed through their town, and wondered if such a thing were too good to be true for him. Well, you know, Zacchaeus has a lesson to teach us all. For if we are really honest with ourselves, it can be easy to lose sight of Jesus in our own lives. He can get lost in the maze of commitments and distractions that congest our world. And perhaps what obstructs our view of Jesus is some false image that we have developed of him. There might be pain from an unhealed wound or the ache of an unresolved grief. There could be guilt or shame from a past that makes us want to hide in the crowd where Jesus can't find us, rather than go out of our way to look for him. Well, Pastor Ray Medeiros tells us, if Zacchaeus could be with us today, he might tell us something like this. Don't let Jesus pass through your life the way that he passed through Jericho that day without getting to know him. Find yourself a vantage point where you can see Jesus clearly, just like he did. And the good news for us is, we don't even have to climb up into a sycamore tree. We can just open our Bibles and read for ourselves who he is. We can join a church where the love of Christ is lived out in the community. Or we can make time in our busy schedules to have a devotional time, or be a part of a Bible study or discussion group, where we can learn more about our Lord. Or we could even join a prayer group where we can find a voice for speaking to Jesus and ears to hear what he is trying to to say to us. Most of these things that Zacchaeus would probably recommend will never happen, though, unless we find the determination to make them happen. Zacchaeus was determined to see Jesus, so he ran and he climbed. He went out on a limb and was even willing to make a spectacle of himself, if that's what it took to meet Jesus. Well, whatever it is that we do to discover Jesus, I guarantee you that we will discover that while we thought we were the ones searching for him, the whole time, he was really searching for us. Zacchaeus climbed a tree to see Jesus, but Jesus was already on the lookout for him and called him by name and into a new relationship with him. Why? Because our Lord Jesus is determined to seek out and to save the lost. When Zacchaeus came down to earth, Jesus said to him and to the onlookers and the crowd who were watching and listening, "Today salvation has come to this house, because Zacchaeus too is a son of Abraham." Jesus praised him as a son of Abraham, the Jewish idea of a faithful servant of God. When Jesus proclaimed that salvation had come to this tax collector's house, the naming of his name, pure and innocent, ceased to be a laughable contradiction and became a description of what Jesus had made him. I suspect that little Zacchaeus never stood so tall in his whole life as he did that day when Jesus spoke those words about him. Well, this coming Thursday will be Reformation Day. Reformation Day reminds us of how the church, at one point, had lost sight of Jesus in the crowded temptations of its own self-interest and intolerance. How for most people, the only vantage point for knowing Jesus was the words of the priest and the proclamations of the church. The majority of the population could not even read the Bible for themselves. Then, Martin Luther and the other reformers made the Bible accessible to all, giving people a new vantage point from which to see and to encounter Jesus. But Reformation Day isn't just a history lesson. It's a vantage point for seeing where the church is today and where it's headed. Now, as we all know, there's a lot of different ways to minister to people and to do outreach. And that's fine as long as we don't lose sight of the mission to which Jesus has called us, which is to seek and to save the lost. In doing this, may we have the same determination, energy, and resourcefulness that Zacchaeus showed that day on the streets of Jericho. And no, I'm not suggesting that we climb up a sycamore tree to get a better look at Jesus. I'm just saying that we should find the best vantage point in our own lives so that we can see Jesus for ourselves. Amen. Let us stand.